Welcome, art students. It's Mrs. Minard here, and today we are going to be creating a landscape drawing of an imaginary place. I know it's kind of a bummer that we've all been stuck inside for a while and we can't go anywhere. So one of the best ways for us to go somewhere is through our art. Today we're going to be using shapes and landscape elements to help us draw an imaginary place we would go. It could be a place you've been to before. It could be a place that you've never been to, like maybe Disney World or Adventureland, but maybe a place you'd like to go. Or it could be a place you've invented yourself, okay? When we are drawing a landscape, there's a couple of things we need to remember. We're going to be talking about size and space when we're creating a landscape drawing, okay? Size is important because when we make a landscape, the size of objects change. For example, if an object is closer in my picture, like this apple, okay, it's going to be lower in my picture and it's also bigger. If an object is farther away, it's going to be smaller and higher up on my picture. This is basic perspective, or the way the viewer sees the image. When we are creating a landscape today, we want to make sure we consider that the objects that are closer are bigger, the objects that are farther are smaller, okay? We also want to make sure we have a horizon in our landscape, which is what divides the sky from the earth. If we would like to look at a famous painting that uses the same idea, this is a painting by the artist Georges Seurat. He's a French painter. And it's called Sunday Afternoon on La Grande Jatte. And this is like a picnic area where people would go in France on a Sunday to enjoy the nice weather, have picnics, be together. And if we look in this picture, you can see that the woman with the umbrella is larger and lower on our picture because she's closer to us. Whereas if we look farther into the picture, there are other people, but they are smaller and higher up because they are farther from the viewer. I will post a resource with some more information on Georges Seurat if you would like to research some of his art more. So today what we are going to start with, on your paper, make sure you just use anything you have at home. You can use printer paper, notebook paper, anything you have will work for this project. Just make sure you have a drawing space. Some sort of a pencil I like to have so I can erase things. I'm going to be using a Sharpie marker to draw my building. And any markers, colored pencils, anything you have at home is just fine for this. So don't worry about that. Okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is create my horizon, the place that separates my sky from my earth. So on my paper, I like to think of dividing it into 3 spaces. So here's 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to make my horizon just in the bottom third of that paper. And it can have hills, it can be flat, maybe it's flat like Traer, maybe it has lots of hills and mountains like Colorado. It's up to you, it's your place. Now, as I'm making my picture, I again want to think about size and space, and I want to use my shapes today. I'm going to be creating a city or town that I would like to visit. Remember, it's wherever you would like to go. So as I'm starting this, I'm going to make some buildings that are closer to me. I'm going to go in the lower left-hand corner and pick from one of my basic shapes. So if I would like to make maybe some little town or houses, I might want to use a square or a rectangle for my buildings. And when I'm making them, I want to make sure they go over top of my horizon because they are close and bigger. Okay? So let's start with just a square. And this is why, well, I guess this is more of a rectangle. That's okay with me. This is why I have drawn in pencil first, because you can see my horizon through my building, which means I can erase it later. And let's also put another friend next to our building here. Make another smaller house. Okay, let's start with maybe adding some other shapes to our shape. So if I'd like to add a roof to my house, and we've talked about this in class many times, I just add a triangle shape to make a roof. I could also use a trapezoid for a roof. I could add a rectangle to this larger rectangle for a chimney. Now I have two buildings that are closer, and I'm going to put them on just a little hill right here. Now I want to add some objects that are farther or smaller in my imaginary place. Again, I'm going to pick from some of my shapes. Maybe there's a water tower in the distance. So a circle is a great shape for that. Add sort of a skinny rectangle that's standing on. Maybe there's a ladder that people have to climb up to get to it. Now let's add some other things near our tower. So how about another building? These are sitting right on my horizon line, as you can see, because they're in the distance, and these ones are closer. Let's add some skinnier buildings here. Okay. Let's think about what other things I could use for my basic shapes. I now have some buildings. So I have my ones that are closer, my ones that are farther. I have all this space in the middle. So that's kind of like a hill or an area I could fill with other things. One thing you could do if you wanted to is make a little road to kind of connect my buildings. And as you can see, my road is going to get bigger and then also smaller as it's farther away from my image. Next thing I'm going to do is add some shapes to make the other parts of my buildings. Maybe this one has a big square opening, kind of is looking like a barn to me. Maybe it has a circle window. There's no reason my window can't be a circle. Maybe I'm going to add, let's see, what else could we put? Oh, maybe there's a pond in this imaginary place that I'm creating. And look at what shape I used to do that, an oval. Okay, my oval is below my horizon line because, well, it's not a floating pond, so it has to be on the earth. Okay, and then what else can we add? Some more buildings, some more doors, windows, whatever you can imagine. I'm going to divide this door in half, so now it's two doors. And remember, when you're sketching with a pencil, things don't have to be perfect. That's why we draw them with a pencil. Later, we can trace over them with our black Sharpie so that they are a little bit clear and we are sure things are the way we want. Let's make some rows of windows on this one. Now I'm going to think a little bit more about what is in this imaginary place. I have now added my shapes. I have my size and space. I have things that are lower, larger, things that are farther up high. I have my horizon. What sort of fun things would be in an imaginary place? Maybe I want to add a roller coaster because this is my imaginary space. So my roller coaster, I'm going to add some wavy lines above my horizon. I'm going to trace along those wavy lines. And now a roller coaster, this would be the track the car would go on. And then usually they're held up by all of this wooden or metal scaffolding. So I'm going to add that. Okay, so I have a roller coaster, I have a water tower. Thinking of other things I want in my imaginary world. What about one of those big, like, air balloon things? That would be kind of cool, and I could use my basic shape of a circle to make that. Making a square for the basket that would be underneath my balloon, and connecting it with some strings. Okay? Again, all of these are just my basic shapes, you guys, so you can just add endless ideas here. Let's see, I could have some other buildings in here. I could add some trees. Guess what shape I'm going to use to make a tree? Just a skinnier triangle. I guess these are pine trees. Really easy way to use my shapes. Once you have your picture the way you want it, then you can take something like a black marker, any sort of a darker color, and you're going to trace along your pencil lines to keep the things you want. So for example, I'm going to keep my line, and as I trace the space, remember to go slowly so that you get a strong line. Okay, so just adding that darker outline is going to really help you to see the details in my city. And remember, this is your imaginary city, so your rectangles don't have to be a perfect rectangle. Some of my corners are a little curvy. I think it just makes it more unique. If you don't know how to draw something, always go back to your shapes and think, if I were drawing this, what shape is it most like? And any shape can be used to create any object if you are creative enough. Now, you could choose to just leave this with your black outline, and then maybe I'll add more windows and other things to my buildings. Or if you want to add color, that's something you could do. If you have watercolors at home, you could use that. If you have markers, you can use that. Really, this is just a fun, imaginary landscape drawing. Any materials you have at home that make a mark will be fine. Maybe you want to add a roller coaster, maybe you want to add a giant pool to your city since we can't go to any pools right now. Maybe you want to have a giant shopping mall. Can't go to those right now either. So invent them in your art. And then we never have to stay at home. We can go anywhere our imagination takes us. Okay? And my strings went a little out of the space there, so I just made my box bigger. Pretty easy way to fix. Okay? So I cannot wait to see what awesome things you guys make. If you would please email those to me. My email should be at the bottom of this so you can find it, or you can also post it in the comments. I would love to see your cities. Thank you guys.